Hello and welcome to In the Chair with Tabitha JK. And today I have the wonderful Jane Sterland in my chair from Weleda. I'm very, very excited to be sharing some time with Jane. We have a lot in common and I always knew that we would have lots and lots to talk about. So I was super excited when I got the opportunity to invite her to my chair to do hair. And we've been in the salon for most of the day today. Having a lovely time, I think.
The best time. It's been an absolute privilege, thank you.
Oh, well, the privilege was all mine, really. It's been great fun. We've been playing creative, having great hair talks, having talks about all manner of things, which we're going to continue the conversation now whilst we're in the studio, in the chair. So, yeah, Jane, well, first of all, let me ask you to tell everybody a little bit about, who you are and what you do, beyond my introduction.
Gosh, thank you. Gosh, where do I start? So I guess I'll start with the present day. So I'm managing director of an amazing company called Weleda here in the UK. Weleda is a global company. So fortunately for me, I just have to look after the UK.
Yes.
But we're... Maybe people don't know about us, but we've been around for 97 years, which I think
97 years.
Amazing. 97 years.
That's incredible.
We're a natural pharmaceutical and cosmetics company. And actually quite a few people might have come across us when they have babies. So nappy cream and baby washes are two bestsellers in the UK. Or maybe through Skin Food, which is our Wonder Cream. Which we've been making since 1925.
I love Skin Food. It's just the most fabulous product. I can't live without it.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's just, it is. I'm
Every
say
home needs
Wonder
Skin
Cream,
Food.
but it is exactly that.
Yes.
So yeah, we're an organic company thinking about health and well-being, and I guess you asked me about me as well. So I mean that's today. That's what I do. But I'm a product of a farmer. My father was a farmer. From many generations of farmers, and my mother was a doctor. So with Weleda, I feel like I've come home.
Oh, isn't that lovely? That's so beautiful. Every time I see you, Jane, you've always got a smile on your face. We bump into each other at events, and you just feel to me one of the happiest women I know. And the more I hear about your world and your life, and the wonderful work that you're doing in the world, I can really see why you have such a permanent smile.
It's true. I'm really, I don't say happy, but fulfilled.
Yes.
I don't lead a divided life anymore. I used to work in fashion, which was a great job, it was a job. But now I just feel, I think I read the term the other day, blended. When you blend your home life, your personal life, and your work, so that it doesn't have any boundaries.
Yes.
And I feel that I'm really privileged to lead a blended life. I really love what I do. I love working with the people that I work with. I love the products. And I really love the philosophy, because the philosophy behind our company is, I think, what makes us completely special. And we have this lovely line, which is where we live in harmony with nature and the human being. And it's not a marketing slogan. We really do it.
You do.
So we have our gardens, and the way we grow our plants, and the way we make our products, and the way we interact together. Yeah, it is absolutely living in harmony and being very fulfilled. That's why I have a smile on my face.
Well, it works, absolutely. Oh gosh, there was so much that you were saying there. I'm like, I want to add. I think I've been a huge fan of Weleda through my whole life. I think I've just always known about the brand and always found beautiful products that I've really enjoyed. And I think that one of the Tabitha's lost her train of thought. That's really helpful. Cut this bit out in the edit. I've been a big fan of Weleda for a really long time, but I'm also I love the model of the way the business works, and we're building a brand at the moment where we're really trying to do good in the world. We're trying to put real love into every process of what we're doing and building with the company. But for me, when I look at Weleda, it's just the epitome of perfection for that way of working, and really to be able to to look at all the people within the company, all the connection with the land, connection with the earth, connection with all that goodness that's coming into every aspect of the business, and how that shows up then in the end result in the product itself. And then the relationship that the product itself has with the public and the users because of it. I mean, there is just such love around Weleda. It's everywhere you go. That I talk to people all the time, and they just passionately love. There's real energy and passion coming out in them describing the product, their chosen products and the ones that they love. And looking after their babies with them. I mean, it's just wonderful, this whole family, and that it's so accessible to everybody. It's just wonderful. I really aspire to, in my little way, to think, oh, wow, I'm absorbing so many of the principles and really loving learning and understanding more about the company for those reasons. It's just wonderful.
Thank you. It's true though, and that's, I think, one of the reasons it puts a smile on my face.
Yes,
because
exactly.
It's interesting we talk about perfection in what we do. I think the key thing for me is that we're transparent and we're honest. I use this phrase all the time, 50 shades of green, because you're always making decisions and trying to make the best decision for the people, the planet, and also to be sustainable, you've got to make a profit.
Yes.
So people, planet, and profit are the three pillars, I think, on which we stand. And we don't, unlike most businesses, we don't start out by making, the business decision that's going to make us the most money. Actually, that's the end of the day. Are we making some money? If we're not making money, we're not sustainable.
Yes.
But the really big questions are: is this right for the planet? Is this the most sustainable we can grow or make our product? Is it right for the person that's going to be using it? So that one of the things I really love is that when we do lots of research and we ask consumers about, why do you love skin food, or why do you love this particular product, they always say, oh, it's because it works. And if I buy a Weleda product and it says lavender relaxing bath milk, that's what it's going to do. So it's got to work.
Yes.
It can't be full of any kind of marketing hype.
No.
It has to do what it says. And how we operate as people as well, how we operate in the business, and how we work with our fair trade projects, which we've got over 50 in the world now.
50 fair trade projects. That's incredible.
And I mean, that's a really interesting business model. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, well, you're just coming up to your 100-year anniversary, is that right? Yes. And to
in 2021.
50 fair trade projects. That's incredible.
And some of them have been going for decades.
Yes.
And I've had the privilege of going to quite a few of them. And we differentiate between a project and a partnership. We'll start out with a partnership that will then become a project. So what we mean by that is so I've recently come back from Moldova, where we're working in partnership with an amazing British chap who used to work for the World Bank, who retired and wanted to do something for the people of Moldova he'd been working with. And in 1992, Moldova voted for independence, came out of the Soviet Union, and the farmers overnight completely lost their market because they were out of the closed market of the Soviet Union. So this amazing man called Bob Hetherington worked with a group of people on the ground in Moldova, bought a farm, and asked Weleda if we would go and partner with him.
Wow.
And then over time, it's been built up, and now they're becoming our number one lavender supplier of essential oils, which is, I didn't know any of that when I went to visit. I just wanted to go and see kind of how we operated on the ground. But when you see that in action, and then you go and visit the health centre that we've helped build, you go and visit the farmers of the two villages, where we effectively keep those two villages in food for the winter, because we don't pay them money. They don't want to be paid money. We pay them in grain.
Oh, wow.
And it's just a completely different business model. And it's a different way of looking at it. So instead of putting a money value on a relationship, we actually look to see what people need. And that goes back to our Steiner principles. So
I was just going to say, this is all relating to the
Rudolf Steiner, yes. So some people might have heard of Rudolf Steiner because we've got Rudolf Steiner education, which is very well known. Rudolf Steiner was born in 1861, so he was quite a Victorian, and he was a philosopher, and he was a real visionary. He had an amazing set of ideas, and you could say, well, he had a second sight, or the ideas came to him, but he really wanted to put his ideas into the world. So he gave between 6,000 and 7,000 lectures during his lifetime.
Wow.
And the majority in the last 20 years before he died, and he died in 1924. But he really wanted to give his wisdom to the world. So he did talks to teachers about how we learn, and how we learn before we're 7, and how we learn through play, which set off Rudolf Steiner schools.
Our sons both went to a Steiner school, and only for about 2.5 years. But we were lucky enough for one of them to start at the beginning just going from from the kindergarten into the year 1, which is then as at the age of 7 years old.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I studied quite a lot around. I just love the fact that he, rather than putting education in saying, right, here's a curriculum you've got to learn, that he said, well, let's look at the human being, and let's look at the development of the human being, and where are they at each stage, and let's meet them where they are. Yeah. And then the magic happens. And it's just, well, I witnessed that for the 2.5 years that our sons were there. It was just incredible how engaged. I watched it in front of my own eyes. And they'd come from mainstream, a very good play-orientated mainstream previously, but then went back into mainstream schooling afterwards. And the differences were immense. Yeah. But I think just awakening that in them has, the adults they're turning into now, it's definitely, they've got that the element of those factors with them, because they've been seen as well. I think they feel whole somehow because they were noticed. And we certainly took the principles of Steiner teaching on beyond how we coached them and how we supported them as parents beyond those years as well. Sorry, I don't know you,
but you've seen it. You've seen it, and that's
incredible to see.
And that's the root of it for me.
Yes.
That is what. So Steiner called his philosophy anthroposophy. So anthro meaning man, and posophy meaning wisdom. So wisdom of man, or wisdom of the human being.
Right.
And he said that every single one of us has the potential in us. And so we're all individuals, we're all unique, and it's about how you awake that individual potential. So you don't sit, 5 and 6 year olds down and chalk and talk at them. You let them explore and develop and so on. And he took that philosophy into farming, and he set up a new way of farming called biodynamic farming. He worked with farmers. And he was saying that effectively, and this was turn of the century, going back to the early 1900s, that farming was suddenly become industrialised, and we were industrialising the land, and we were putting lots of nitrate and phosphate on there, and we were turning it into a production area as opposed to an ecosystem. And that biodynamic farming has now led into the organic farming movement as we know it today.
Well, I'm going to stop you there, because that's something that I think is really interesting and that people might not realise about. Weleda is just this. It is this amazing brand that is in our lives, it's in our world, we know about it, and if you don't, you should do. But I wonder whether people realise that it's organic, and then most of all, do they realise it's biodynamic, which is like the ultimate version of organic. It is the thing that sets the precedent for the optimum way to farm something naturally, without chemicals, without adding anything in there other than the life force, other than working with the ecosystems as a whole to empower. And even down to the picking. I love that in biodynamic farming you think about when you're going to pick an ingredient so that it is of the optimum that ingredient can be, and it's just beautiful. I don't think people fully understand that.
No, and I think some of that is our fault, because we've been doing it for 97 years, and I think we don't realise how different and unique we are. I mean, you mentioned that. We're very special. We have 7 gardens, and we have, say, 50 partnerships and projects. I think I saw some stats the other day that said I think we farm 250 square kilometres organic and biodynamically across the globe.
Wow.
That's not enough, I have to say. We've got a big initiative now. So in terms of being transparent, only 5% of all of the plant ingredients we grow is biodynamic. I'll come back to why that's important, and we want it to be 30% over the next 5 years. But the majority of what we use is organic. I think it's about 82% of all of our plant ingredients. And we want it to be 100%, but that we'll never get to 100% because it's about the quality of the ingredients that's really important. That's not to say that the other 18%, you know, it isn't purely natural, we're using something we shouldn't be using. It might be just that it's not certified.
Right.
But we have to work within the harvest, within the seasons. And we try to source everything because we use so much, because we're now quite a big player in the organic field.
Yes.
We try to grow a crop in the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere in case we have a crop that fails.
Right, okay, so you're growing back up.
Yeah, all the time. And coming back to why biodynamics is really important, is that we're working with the whole ecosystem of the land. So it's really about putting back into the soil the nutrients it needs. And I'm not talking necessarily about food stuff, I'm talking about the microbes. So we know all about the gut biome, but we don't really know that much about the soil biome, although science is beginning to catch up.
That is fascinating.
And we work in harmony with the soil, but we also work in harmony with the rhythms of the earth. The earth breathes out in the morning, it breathes in the afternoon. We have special days depending on where the planets are in our solar system, because we know the moon has an effect on us. That's, you know, we know the tides and cycles, but we don't actually understand that the other other 6 planets that are visible to us also have an effect on us. And it's not ooky spooky, you can actually prove it.
Yes.
And so it's to do with water flow, it's to do with all other kind of energy forces. So, and we also think about all of the, you know, the bugs and the bees and the flora and the biodiversity. So it produces, sounds very complicated, but it isn't. It's just nature. And everything is working within its own cycle in harmony with the next cycle. So going back to the microbes in the soil, if all farming in the world were farmed in a more holistic way, biodynamically, we would re-sequester the carbon in our atmosphere back into the soil, and it would solve global warming.
So I'm really intrigued to learn more about the soil, because I know in biodynamic farming the soil is so crucial to the outcomes. So tell me more about that.
So I guess we'll start by calling it the biome of the soil.
Right, okay.
We're just starting to learn about our own skin's biome.
Yeah.
And it's to do with the life in the soil. So soil isn't a potting compost, a medium of which plants grow. What's in the soil actually helps the plant to grow. So what science, what in biodynamic farming we've known for a long time, but science is just kind of catching up, is that a plant gets most of its nutrients from the microbiome in the soil.
Right.
So it photosynthesizes, creating lots of simple sugars, and really interestingly sends them down through the roots out into the soil, not for the roots to grow, but for the bacteria and the fungi and all of the different microbes in the soil to feed upon. And then there's about 5 layers. And then one layer feeds upon another, feeds upon another. And it might be the byproduct, it might be the microbes themselves that another microbe eats. And all the time they're producing lots of other byproducts. And the plant is really clever, it sucks all those up, and that is the nutrient the plant needs. So I think we've kind of got it all wrong. Nature's just amazing, isn't it?
Just breathtakingly. That's incredible.
And part of the process is carbon capture in the soil.
Right.
So the soil becomes very rich. Now, it doesn't just happen. One of the key tenets, or one of the laws, I suppose, of biodynamic farming is you pay attention to the soil. Mm. So you're building up your infrastructure, you're building up, you know, all your layers of biodiversity. So, think about slugs. We don't get slugs, probably because we have very healthy animals that eat slugs, so lots and lots and lots. So it's a very active place, our biodynamic garden, yes. And really, really active in the soil. There's something like, a centimetre squared of our soil contains more life than there is on Earth. It is absolutely amazing.
Oh gosh, it's like, everything turned upside down and inside out. That's incredible in a square centimetre.
In a tiny amount of our soil, And we do that
The
through
universe
things
that
like
exists.
exactly, and we do that through lots of what we call our preps. So we build our own compost. So again, the other thing about biodynamics, which I find fascinating, but again makes such sense, is it's a closed system. It's a closed piece of land. So we don't take anything in, and we don't take anything out.
Okay.
So when we take the plants out, I mean, clearly we use the plants when we make the tinctures.
Yeah.
All of the waste plant material goes back into our composts.
Right.
If
everything.
So everything goes back in, and we have a lot of crops that we just grow for compost. We have green manures, so we're always thinking about how we can keep that soil as healthy as possible. And we make things like compost preps. So we use things like oak bark and valerian, comfrey, and all the really good things that Steiner gave us indications for. And we put them into the compost preps in a particular way that help that compost to be made, and it makes it more fertile. And the root of it is the microbes that live in these compost preps. So you only need a tiny amount. But it will take over the whole compost heap. So it's magic.
It is magic.
It's also science.
It's science. Ultimately, it's science. That's incredible. But I love that the knowledge that's held within the company is in depth. I mean, that's just phenomenal that you go you're going to that extent to produce the quality and the ingredients. I mean, that's why the products talk for themselves, isn't it? That's just wonderful. And just observing, I think we just need to get back to this. We need to understand more about this stuff. I think the beauty industry needs to understand more about this stuff. All industries, when we're talking about growing and using natural ingredients for anything, whether that's food or from agriculture or to create products, it's just to actually be understanding how these systems are working more harmoniously, so that we can make them optimum, so that we can keep them healthy, and so that we have longevity ultimately.
Absolutely.
Because everything that we've been doing in the last 50 years feels like it's just been about depleting. We're just raping the land. We're just taking everything without any kind of care or consideration of how that, I mean, from what you're saying, the land, when it's biodynamically farmed, is just getting better and better and stronger. Well, that's the way to do it, isn't it?
I think my dad used to say, so he was a farmer, and he used to say, "Man thinks he's so clever," but and he used to say, I am not as significant as that tree. So I've kind of come from a place of real humility, and yet the problem is we do think we're really clever, and we do think we're masters of nature, and the current climate situation is really starting to tell us that we're not. And I think it's when you know a truth and you know it to be true, and you hear something, you go, well, of course, or that's common sense or whatever. That's when for me, that's when the light goes on. That's when I realise that actually looking after the health of the soil by feeding it properly, by treating it properly, by building the whole kind of biodiversity around it, by not bringing in something that isn't meant to be there, it just tells you that nature got it right.
Yes.
And actually, it's us that mess it up.
Absolutely.
And we talk about beauty products, and we forget that we're part of nature.
Yes.
And the things that
we're part of the ecosystem.
We are, and the things that we put on our skin probably aren't meant to be there. And then we wonder why we get dry skin because we're using petroleum-based products on our skin that dry it out.
Yeah. Petrol-based.
Petrol-based.
Yes. Essentially,
we're putting petrol on our skin.
Sometimes I think, I think my grandmother, the products that she would have used, if I say that that's petrol, derived from strongly, oh gosh, really? We don't think about it, do we?
No,
I think en masse, we don't think about what's in the bottle and what's in those ingredients.
No, and so we go back to the soil and how it's a very complicated system of 5 different levels of different microorganisms, bacteria and fungi and so on. But our skin is exactly the same.
Of course, as is our scalp.
Yes, precisely. And our scalp's next door to our brain.
Exactly.
But I heard somebody say the other day that if you took all the cells in our body, we're 10% us and 90% microorganism. So not us,
Right.
if you actually analyse all the cells in your body in terms of bacteria. Now, I don't know if that to be true, but I thought, gosh, that's really interesting. So actually, we have biodiversity in us.
Yes.
So, you know, think about the acid mantle, and when we were in the salon today, you were talking about the importance of the acid mantle, the importance of our skin, and how it keeps us healthy, or how we keep ourselves healthy. And then you think about all the things we do to it. And then we wonder why we get eczema, or why we get dermatitis, or, you know, it's fairly obvious, isn't it, really?
It's not rocket science.
It's not rocket science.
It's not. And it is really so important, I think, for us to really get back to basics. I want to talk in a little while about luxury, because immediately in my head I'm saying, yes, but it doesn't have to not be luxurious to do that, and I want to continue that in a moment. But this idea that looking much more simply and harmoniously with the way our body functions naturally. And one of the key things I think is really important, that when you're using something that is pure, that is, you know, that is a real non-chemical ingredient, no synthetics having been consciously added into the mix, the relationship between that total ingredient, that total product, and the body is totally different. I know that the reason that my shampoo is so effective is because of the purity. It wouldn't work in the same way if I'd put, oh well, that's fine, we'll snack it. You know, we'll put a whole load of, well, 10% is fine, of chemical into the mix. The body would have a completely different conversation with that product because of that. And I think that's the thing to recognise when we're talking about, you know, our own microbiomes, the systems in which our body's functioning, and how, if we're going to bring in an outsider to the conversation, i.e. a product, that it is actually adding something to the conversation, that it's waking up, that it's becoming medicinal in some way, that it's enlivening the body to react in a positive way and be awake, rather than the idea of a product that just sends the body to sleep and pretends, puts a film over the top, and just kind of like, you know, job taken care of, and suddenly the body stops functioning, and then ultimately 3 months later, when somebody started using a cream, for example, then their skin's really messed up because of the fact that it's shut down from using the cream in the beginning.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say something really controversial.
Oh, good.
Disappointed if I didn't. You know, if you go back 100 years, I think you said that shampoo was invented.
I think it's about 110, 115 years ago.
So we go back before that. So before skincare products, you know, the ones that say we would use on a regular basis, we didn't use any. So I kind of think to myself, well, why didn't we use any? Well, they didn't exist, Jane. Did we need them? So you then start really, once you put that light on, once you start really questioning, why am I being a consumer, as in a consumer of products? Is it for my own benefit? Is it for my health? That's quite a big question to have in your life. And why am I doing these things? Because, you know, I look at skin, we deal with skin every day, and that's our business. So a baby arrives in the world, beautifully packaged in its own moisturiser. It's called Vernix. What's the first thing we do? We wash it off. And yet she has arrived perfect. There is nothing wrong with that baby. It does not need washing off. So why do we do it? Because what we've just done is then expose that baby's skin, which is 5 times thinner than our skin, that's been, you know, in amniotic fluid for 9 months, that isn't ready to be exposed to the outside world, because that's what the protective layer is there for. We've just washed it off, and then we wonder why 3 months later a baby's developing dermatitis. And why that intervention? That's the question that I think we all need to hold. And I think it's interesting working for a cosmetics brand where I'm saying, well, don't use products. What will happen if you don't use products? Because those are the big questions we need to be asking ourselves. Because if your body is functioning well, and let's face it, that's not all the time.
No.
But if you have a healthy diet and you're happy and so on, then you should be functioning.
Yeah.
And then you need the products to help you when you're not functioning. So therefore, why are we using products every day? Because actually we're washing off the acid mantle, we're washing off the sebum, we're destroying all of the healthy microorganisms that live in our skin.
Yeah. It's that you speak my language. It's so lovely to hear this in the context of skin. I think it's obviously it relates exactly to hair. You know, most people since the 1980s, a lot of people, I shouldn't say most, a lot of people were washing their hair every day. And of course, the body is very clever. It knows that if you strip away the acid mantle, the sebum, in this case, that's building up on the scalp, if you strip that away, then the body's reaction is to put it back again, and very quickly. And the more you shampoo, the worse it gets. And I've met people that have to wash their hair twice a day because it's got so extreme, and it's so miserable and debilitating and awful. And it's just, the more we mess, the worse things get. So
Absolutely.
using beautiful products that are working in harmony with the body is the only way to go. I know a lot of people enjoy the nurturing and the process of being kind to themselves and sort of, you know, treating themselves with a body oil or something, because it's, you know, it's part of the ritual of the application and taking some time out for yourself. And I think if you're doing that harmoniously, then that's a nice thing to do, because that's about other things as well.
Yeah, I would put one more word in that. If you're doing it harmoniously and consciously.
And consciously, yes, that's
because
beautiful.
As long as we're conscious about what we're doing, that's absolutely fine. Where I get really quite upset and cross, and in my old age I'm becoming much more of an activist, is when we're unconscious.
Yes.
So go back to babies, because they don't have very much of a choice.
No, exactly.
If you look at the majority of skincare for babies and for children, it is full of synthetic ingredients. So if you think about, and you know this, you're a formulator, if you think about what's actually in a product and where it comes from, there's a lot of plastic in a product. In typical synthetic products, that there is a lot of things that are put in there not for direct benefit. So I'm really fortunate to work for a company that every single thing in a product has been thought about and is put in there for a reason. Sadly, that's not the case in the market. No. So, you know,
that's exactly how we think too. I mean, it's everything in the bottle is there for purpose. Otherwise, it's not there. There are no fillers, nothing else that shouldn't be there, and certainly no plastics. This is a conversation we're going to move on to. So, Jane, we were talking about the idea of product use, and you know, thinking about why would we use something, when would we use it, and there's a lovely thought came to mind. I mean, I know we spoke earlier when we were in the chair about makeup, and I know this is something that you and I share opinion on as well. But I love makeup. I'm a makeup artist. I've worked in the industry doing hair and makeup for a long time, and I passionately love makeup. But what I love about doing makeup is revealing someone's natural beauty, but then to do that, I might reveal their beautiful skin, and then I might go all out edgy on what else I'm creating on their makeup. One of our recent campaigns, my beautiful model had, you know, we painted a mask on her face, you know, and the makeup was stronger than strong. It just looked fabulous. Yeah, her skin was her skin and beautiful. And I just get so worried about young people sometimes, and the amount of makeup that's used and the amount of foundation. Actually, I shouldn't say makeup. I'm thinking foundation when I said the word makeup, but that the amount of foundation that can be used on faces, and that we lose beautiful skin. I think I want to like start a campaign saying, where's real skin? And I think that's something. You were telling me about working with makeup artists on film sets, and how, because of the camera lens, well, I'll let you tell that. But how?
Well, we started working with makeup artists, but we've worked with a number of makeup artists many years. But over the last couple of years, we found that we were getting asked for skincare for, you know, TV dramas and for Hollywood films and so on. And we thought, what's going on? So what's happened with filming is that we've gone to high definition, gone to high definition TV.
Right.
So you can't wear, let's call it slap, in the old, you know, the old kind of theatrical slap.
Yeah.
You can't go for theatrical makeup anymore on film, because you'd see it. Because you can actually see the pores in somebody's skin. Yeah. And on the current definition for film and for TV. So what makeup artists have realised is, quite rightly, is that why would you cover up the skin? So it goes back to these conscious questions.
Yes.
So I was thinking, well, why would you wear foundation to cover yourself up? It's a mask.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see why you would for some occasions, if you want to make something very, very theatrical. But day to day, why would you? And that then led me into, well, it's not authentically you. The face that you're putting into the world isn't authentically you.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if you think about the next generation, the millennials for us, Generation Z for the millennials, well, they live in this social media world where everything is prepped and preened and artificial, and what face are you showing to the world? And if it's not authentically you,
how do you be you the rest of the time?
Absolutely. So straight away, you've got your inside me and my outside me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just find that that's not a wholeness. That's two sides of you. And I think foundation is a real question for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're wearing foundation because your skin's not good enough, well, get your skin good enough, because the more you wear foundation, the worse your skin is going to get.
Absolutely.
So there's a question about the health of the skin, but for me there's also about wanting your authentic self, your whole self, to be seen in the world. And I think that's a much bigger question.
Yeah.
And I would love, we should start our own campaign. Ditch the foundation. And I love it for, those 2 or 3 times a year when we go to big awards or whatever. It's fantastic to become your alter ego, to look like you were saying with your model with the mask, that Blade Runner and so on.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. But every day, day to day, we've got to stop being a divided person. We've got to become our authentic self.
Yeah.
And that's where beauty is. Beauty
Yes.
comes from within. Beauty is not something that you slap on.
Oh, I love that. That's so great to say. That's so brilliant to recognise. I think, 100% agree with you. And we did a campaign about 2 years ago where we were exploring the aspects of personality types, and saying, well, actually, there's so, I don't want to, all the models that I use in that campaign, I didn't want to display any of them with one picture and say that says who they are. Who's behind that? Well, let's think about, we had different characters that we created for that, but it's really about talking about the, just small elements. We captured 3, which is just a small part of the whole person, but it's just this, idea that we've all got so much to give, and people come alive when they're, when they're feeling good, when they're feeling healthy, when they're feeling happy and feeling alive. And I think, that's when people glow. That's when they look beautiful. Definitely.
And for me, it's about finding that inner purpose. It's about really thinking about yourself and who you are and how you want to be in the world. So not about what you want to be perceived as, but just to be really authentically you.
So I heard a comment last week, Jane, that really stopped me in my tracks. I thought that's such a great line. But somebody said to me that clean is the new luxury.
That is a great line.
Isn't that great?
Absolutely, yes. And it's true, isn't it? Because for me, and we've had lots of debates internally about what clean beauty is, and I actually prefer the term conscious beauty.
Yes.
Clean means it is devoid of certain dirty chemicals, whatever they are. But I think to be conscious, and certainly the products that you make, every single ingredient in there is put in there with intent, and you leave out the things that you don't need. Mm-hmm. So everything in there does something. It's the same with us. So I smile at the term clean beauty, because I think surely all beauty should be clean.
Shouldn't it?
Should be clean.
What
are we talking about here?
Exactly. And why are we having this conversation?
Yeah, why are we having this conversation?
Because because most people would say that they use brands that they think are clean, and all those lovely botanicals, all those lovely natural ingredients, all those lovely organics that have been added in, then isn't it automatically clean? Yeah. And consumers have been so hoodwinked. It's just diabolical.
I know. I always laugh, I don't know about you, when I see 97% natural. And I'm like, oh, what's the other 3%?
That's terrifying.
Yeah. Why are you even saying that? Because that seems to be a bit of a boast. It seems to be a bit of a marketing claim. So there's this whole thing about greenwashing, where brands purport to be greener and more organic than they really are. And yet they should be clean or cleaner. And yet they're not. And
well, we have to really seriously think about human health. This conversation is vital that we start to think more, and that companies behave more honestly to protect human health, but also, of course, the other ecosystem that we all are a big part of is the health of the planet, and what we're doing to our seas, and what we're washing down the sink and into our water systems. The amount of plastics that we're talking about plastics in the context of bottles, and we're all now being more conscious, thank goodness, about packaging, but what about what's inside the bottle in terms of plastics as well? I actually I did a talk at the Go Organic Festival, which was incredible, earlier this year. That was a great opportunity. It was really amazing to be at that festival, and my talk was on talking about if something as simple as changing your shampoo and the impact that could have on the planet. And I showed, in the middle of my talk, I showed a clip from Blue Planet. And when David Attenborough showed us that clip of the baby whale that was looking after its, the mama whale that was looking after its baby, and the baby had been dead for 3 days, and the mother whale couldn't leave it, was just so devastating. I think that was a really poignant moment for a lot of people, because he then cut, so from that scene it cut across to the big fishing nets full of plastic. But what he said was, it is the industrial waste. When the industrial waste touches that plastic, it's what happened next that is so poisoning our seas. And for me, that was the wake-up call that made me think, yes, this is exactly why it's much more that we've got to think about how often do we wash our hair, how often are we using products, what is in those ingredients. Why do we need silicons? I'm a hairdresser. I'm telling you, silicons are terrible for hair. It's just messing up your hair. Do not use anything with silicons for that reason, on that basis alone. But when you then think about those plastics do not disappear. When we talk about nanoparticles in the sea and microbeads, the microbeads are nanoparticles of plastic. That's coming from the silicons, that's coming from all of the other types of plastic that are even on our clothing as well, polyester clothing, etc. I mean, it's just a whole minefield of things, these tiny little bits that are making their way into the sea. But we have to be conscious, we have to think about everything we're doing, and it's possible.
It is possible. And
we live in a time where it's very possible.
And it just means unlearning some of the science that we have learned. So most products come out of a lab. Yes. They don't come out of a field.
Exactly.
And we use extracts of essential oils for perfume. We don't use the whole essential oil. And so I always think that, when you look at a price, you should be looking at the whole price of the product, including cleaning up the seas, for example.
Yes.
So if you have a truly sustainable product, you're thinking about where the ingredients are coming from, and are we taking more of the Earth's resources and not replenishing it? That's the first question. How are we processing those ingredients? Are we using them holistically and in their entirety? And then what happens to it post the consumer? So particularly with your products, they wash off. With our products, we know that when it goes onto the skin, up to 60% of that product can go actually into you through your skin. We know that happens, otherwise nicotine patches wouldn't work.
Exactly.
So transdermal absorption happens.
Exactly.
And yet, where is the responsibility? Who holds that responsibility? Because it has to rest with us as brand owners, doesn't it?
It totally
has to rest with us. And so, yes, I watched Blue Planet, and I was absolutely horrified, because we're not being responsible for what we're doing to this planet. And there's only one planet. And at the moment we're in planetary overshoot, which means we're using 1.3 times the Earth's resources in a year. So by the time we get to August, we've gone into planetary overdraft, which is just, when are we going to wake up?
Well, we're talking about 12 years, aren't we now? Yeah, it's time to change. There's just no excuse anymore. We have to shift. We have to move our thinking. And I think it's, we have to make sure that our governments are creating opportunities for us to recycle properly and
Absolutely.
effectively, so that we can really ensure that we know where things are going when we finish with them. But we also then can be making really honest, conscious choices that we can live with, knowing that we're not adding to the problem.
Well, I heard a sentence the other day, which I've decided to kind of really take to my heart, which is, are you a consumer or a citizen or both? And that's a really kind of very powerful statement. So
yes.
we are consumers. We live in the material world.
Yes.
But we're also custodians of the world. And unless we are conscious of that, and so every time now, there's lots of decisions that I make where I'm so imperfectly natural.
Yes.
But now I'm trying to be conscious of being imperfectly natural and trying to think more citizen and less consumer.
Yes. That's wonderful. That's a really great way to say it. There's one last thing I want to touch on, Jane. This conversation around luxury, we were talking about that earlier as well. Actually, maybe not one last thing, but last thing. If we think about luxury, what is luxury to you?
So, luxury has been associated with price for a very, very long time. So something luxurious is going to have a big ticket on it, a big price on it. And yet, I don't know where that's come from. I mean, maybe it's the previous conversation about being a consumer.
Yes.
Oh, it's really expensive, therefore I'm treating myself. And yet when I think about the luxurious things in my life, it's, you know, having a beautiful, you know, essential oil in a bath, or a gorgeous candle, or a walk on the beach, or sometimes a really fantastic glass of water when I'm really thirsty.
Yes.
I mean, that's luxury.
Yes.
And yet we seem to associate it with price. And yet it's got to be, for me, it's got to be about having the best ingredients in a product and knowing that the planet isn't being harmed. It's something that's much more intangible, I think,
yes,
than about money.
Yes, agreed. Yes, exactly. And I suppose when it comes back to the statement I heard, doesn't it, as well, it just something, for me, I suppose luxury would be to say something precious, something, this idea of gifting to yourself as well, but in just in a nurturing way.
But we don't, do we?
No, we don't. We don't do it enough. British women,
well, particularly as women, but
yes,
particularly as British women,
yes,
we don't care for ourselves. And honestly, if you're not caring for yourself, how can you care for others, and how can you care for the planet?
Yeah.
And it's realising that we're all, you know, amazing people, really unique, and just being kind to yourself. We use the word care a lot at Weleda. You know, we make body care, and we make skin care, and we make baby care, and we make dental care, and so on. But health care, the word care is incredibly important, because it's about love.
Yes.
Yeah, start with yourself.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, that's a good place to end that point, I think. Jane, it's been such an amazing time. It's been such a pleasure to share this time with you. I've had the most amazing day.
Well, I've had the best day ever.
Oh,
and
that's so good to hear.
I told you before, but it's my birthday tomorrow, but I cancelled that, and it's my birthday
today
because I just had the best day.
Oh,
thank you
so
much.
Pleasure. My absolute pleasure. Everybody, the amazing Jane Sterland, thank you so much.
Thank you.